really appreciate all the great comments we've getting on our YouTube channel and also on Facebook. It's just amazing. Y'all have written so many nice comments, and really and truly, probably 98 out of 100 are positive, and I appreciate that. And those 2% that's not positive, you know, obviously you don't have to stay on this channel if you don't like what we're doing. But I really appreciate when you ask for something that you want done, or you're telling me something that I can do better. You're not just griping about what I'm saying or what I'm doing. If you're telling me something I can do better, man, I'm really looking for that. So help me all you can. Help me all you can. One of the things that I've been getting quite a bit of inquiries about lately on several videos is, Jimmy, can you do a little more storytelling? And I tell stories. I tell stories that most people don't even want to hear. But somebody asked specifically about telling stories about a guy named Virgil Ward. He said, I heard that you knew Virgil Ward. And Virgil Ward had a show on for many, many years called Championship Fishing. A lot of you young guys on YouTube and Facebook, you never heard of Virgil Ward. But yeah, those of you that are my age and even quite a bit younger than me, you heard a lot about Virgil Ward. Virgil Ward had a show called Championship Fishing. And other than my dad and my granddad and my two uncles, that man probably had as great an influence on my fishing and my fishing career as anybody ever. Now, I can name many, many individuals: Ray Scott, Bill Dance, Hank Parker, Roland Martin. Roland Martin had a lot of influence on me. Ricky Klein. I mean, I've learned so much from so many people. But Virgil Ward, I actually met Virgil Ward when I was in high school, but in my senior year. Right? I grew up in Moore, Oklahoma, which is in the Oklahoma City area. Between my junior and senior year, my dad bought a resort on Lake Tenkiller. We moved to the lake. And instead of going to the University of Oklahoma to go to college, I went to Northeastern because of that lake. We had a college close by. We had a lake close by. It was a pretty simple decision to me to change from Oklahoma University to Northeastern. And it'd be nice after all these years to say I graduated from Oklahoma University, but I didn't. But I'm really connected to OU, and I love it, and the athletic director's friends, the coaches are friends, players are friends, and I love OU. But I love Northeastern also. But back to Virgil Ward. They had, back in those days, this is way before BASS, way before FLW, way before Major League Fishing, way before just about anything. They had a deal they called the World Series of Sports Fishing. And I actually fished that tournament when I was a senior in college 4 years later. But in 1962, they brought that tournament to 3 lakes in Oklahoma. They had it on Grand Lake, Fort Gibson Lake, and then the last 2 final days was on Lake Tenkiller, where my dad had a resort. And these guys all came in there, and they were the greatest bass fishermen at the time. There wasn't any such thing as Roland Martin and Bill Dance and Hank Parker back then. They were around back then, but they were just kids like me. And they're the greatest fishermen in the world. People like Jim Rogers from Lamar, Missouri. People like Glenn Andrews and Glenn Causey from over in Arkansas. People like Roy Martin from Panama City Beach, Florida. Roy Martin held more saltwater world records than any man that's ever lived. I guess still does. And a guy like Joe Krieger, who had worked for Lou Boyles there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and did a weekly fishing show for the store, by the Joe Krieger Show. And then another man named Virgil Ward from Amsterdam, Missouri. And Virgil Ward, all of those guys came down and fished Lake Tenkiller, and they all had little aluminum boats with 20 horsepower motors on them. And they left them parked at the lake at night, and they got this kid that worked at his dad's resort to guard the boats for them. And they paid me like $20 for the whole week to guard the boats. So I slept down there in my pickup truck at night watching these boats pulled up on the bank to make sure that nobody got in there and stole anything. To be honest with you, there wasn't nothing worth stealing in those boats. They left maybe a few lures in there. They didn't leave rod and reels in there. You know, there really wasn't anything worth stealing hardly. But I guarded their boats. I slept in a pickup truck. But here's the other part of the deal. I got to go fishing with all these guys. I got to fish with, at 16 years old, the greatest bass fisherman in the world. And one of those that I got to fish with was Virgil Ward. Now, I didn't know at the time. They knew, here's a kid, his daddy owns a resort on the lake. He fishes every day. He knows all the hot spots. And so I was actually taking them and showing them all my good spots. I didn't understand. I didn't know at the time what they were doing. I was just so tickled to death to get to go fishing with the best bass fishermen in the world. And so I got to fish with those guys. And the thing that impressed me most about Virgil Ward was how he could throw a lure out there and hit this close to the bank, or throw it out by a boat dock and hit this close to the corner of the boat dock, or throw it out by a bush and throw it back up underneath that bush. And I thought, my gosh, these guys are magicians, they're God. It's amazing. And so that one little deal there caused me to work on my casting ability. And, you know, because of that, I've won pretty much every casting contest that I've ever got into. I'm not sure I can beat a lot of these guys nowadays. I hadn't been in a casting contest in a couple, 2 or 3 years, but I've got won big trophies, won $10,000 at a Bass Pro Shop event one time in a big casting contest. All the pros in the nation got involved in. It was the most fun thing in the world. Won a giant trophy and $10,000 in a casting contest. Amazing. But I got to go fishing with these guys, and Virgil Ward, his casting ability made me want to emulate that. And that's what I worked on, and that was what I became known as a young guy, was being able to throw a spinnerbait in places where no one else could throw a spinnerbait. And it worked out really, really well. But you know, the story with Virgil Ward didn't end there just on Lake Tenkiller. Virgil Ward had a son, Bill Ward. Bill Ward became a really, really good bass fisherman. Bill had a son, which is Virgil's grandson, named Greg Ward, who became a dynamite bass fisherman. He might have been the best bass fisherman of 3. Those guys were great, great friends of mine. We fished tournaments together. We pheasant hunted together. We ran around together, just incredibly great people. Actually, my daughter dated another one of Virgil Ward's grandsons during some of the tournament days. So it's a very, very good family. Virgil Ward is as good as gold. Very religious man. And I actually had the great pleasure later in his lifetime, and Virgil's been gone for quite a while now, but I had the great pleasure later in his lifetime of taking him to Venezuela on a peacock bass fishing trip. We held a couple of America's Cup tournament down there, which I'll talk to y'all about there and tell you that story about the America's Cup tournament, America versus Venezuela, fishing for peacock bass. But I got to take him down there on one of those America's Cup tournaments, and I was the one that put those tournaments together and caused that to happen for, I think we did it 2 times or 3 times, and they were tremendous events. But I took Virgil Ward to Venezuela and let him catch peacock bass. He had never caught them in his life. Took Greg, his grandson, and we had a tremendous trip. But the moral of this story, and it's been a long story, but it's my recollection of Virgil Ward. The moral of this story was, here was the greatest bass fisherman in the world at that time, Virgil Ward. And by the way, he won the championship, the World Series of Sports Fishing, right there on Lake Tenkiller, where I lived in 1962. And he started a television show called Championship Fishing. Virgil Ward, being nice and being the kind of gentleman he was, and taking time to spend time with a 16-year-old high school kid on Lake Tenkiller, later in his life was paid back by being taken to Venezuela and fishing America's Cup tournament by a guy that had been on television for a million years, Jimmy Houston Outdoors. That's what being nice is all about. Just think about that for a while. Woods, water, and windshield. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Go hit that notification bell. If you like the videos you see, send them to 8 or 10 to your friends. Tell them to do the same thing, because we're working hard out here to help you become a better fisherman. See you later, guys and girls. I appreciate you.